I'd like to share notes about the shelling of corn in this video. Sasha and I planted corn in the beginning of last growing season, which grew in our neighbor's field down the way. It was a new field. We hadn't built up the fertility yet, and it was incredibly dry. So the cobs came out way smaller than we had hoped, but they're still worthwhile for making corn tortillas and the like. And so the question is, well, how do we get these kernels off the cob now that they have dried quite a bit? Well, we started with kind of what you would do. I guess when we didn't know any better, we would do this. You kind of get a row started and you poke at it, and once some are open, you can kind of twist at it. Okay, and then we learned you could take the cob from one that's done and use that, and that shoots them all over the place, but it kind of works. And then we can sweep them up and put them in the chicken feed, and a minute or two later you can finally get through one and your hands are sore. But we have an entire bag full of these that we want to get through, so I figured there might be a better way. We saw lots of examples online, some of which you could buy electric or hand crank or plastic or metal, and then there were lots of DIY options, and those were what we were interested in more than anything. And what we saw was a nice simple example on Mother Earth News way back when. There was an article about a very simple idea of a board with a hole drilled in it and some nails hammered through. And so I adapted that idea and made this very simple prototype that so far has been pretty nice for us. And part of the reason why I think it's worth showing this is most of the corn shellers we saw DIY examples of had one hole. And I think the presumption was that you had pretty uniform corn. Because we have such genetic diversity, there's all sorts of small round ones, long skinny ones, everybody in between. It's a really wonderful diverse population. It is not a one-size-fits-all scenario. And so what I did is I took some drill bits. This is a piece of hardwood that happens to be black locust. I used these bits, but you could probably use a spade bit. You could probably even use a little drill to drill a hole through, and then a jigsaw to make a roughly circular thing. And these are about 1 inch to 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches or so. And I made it on this board so we could go bigger if hopefully next year we have much bigger corn we can keep sizing up. But you could even do this in a piece of firewood. And instead of using nails, I pilot hole drilled in from the side and used screws so that I could go deeper or looser depending on how it works. Right, so we could test it and make some adjustments. And so let me show you how this actually works. For example, here's one that fits in the first hole. And what I find is you can just simply twist, and I'm not going to say this is the best thing ever, but what it does is it knocks a whole lot of the kernels off without really grinding your hand to bits. And then what it does leave, I could do this a little bit more through the hole, but what remains only takes a few seconds to finalize. The smaller they are, it seems like the more the kernels stick. But you get the idea. I twist it through. It's not so much that it makes it this amazingly fast thing, but it really saves grinding your hands against the corn nonstop. So I use this end in this one, and now I can go into this one. You can also use the edge of it to rub them off if you don't want to have to rub it at all with your hands. That gets them nice and clean. Now I know for those of you that grow corn and actually have irrigation and good soils that you're working with, these probably seem so pathetic and little, but we love these little corns. They tried so hard in a drought year, and even though the kernels are microscopic, they're so colorful and diverse, and making tortillas out of these is going to be a real joy. That'll be another video, probably coming close on the heels of this once we get these cleaned up. But that's the basic idea. Various holes. If you have diverse sized and pretty small corn, you want to get the kernels off without really beating up your hands, consider a good piece of hardwood and holes of various sizes. I think if I were to upgrade this, instead of a single screw on each side, I might do a pilot hole drill in at an angle here and an angle here, so I could put in 2 screws and 2 screws. It feels like the more teeth there are, so to speak, the more it can grab and knock those kernels off. I'd love to hear if you think there's some good upgrades or some other avenues we could go, but for 5 minutes in the garage and a couple of screws and a piece of scrap lumber. I'm really pleased with how much this is saving our hands. Thanks for watching.